Well, what's going on, Facebook family and friends, social media family and friends? Once again, it is another Wednesday, 29th day of November. Yours truly, Joe Dupree, in the building from 100 BLK to Black Station. And I'm joined by none other than Edward J. Brown from Positive Choices and Miss Shauna Sias from the Bullet Box Passion Project. You know how we do. We're in here because it's Wellness Wednesday. And a healthy you
is
is
a
a
better
better
you.
you. And your mental health definitely matters. So let me first start off with Mr. Edward J. Brown. How about them Jaguars?
Hey man, hey, they took care of business. They did what they were supposed to do.
Bayou Classic has came and gone. Folk have
We'll
been
forever
full of
be immortalized as the winners of the 50th annual Bayou Classic.
That
part
may
right
be
there.
in store, but
Even
we all
though-
know the band from the Grambling State University took that.
Well,
Shout out to my baby on that field in the piccolo section.
They took that L on the chin, though. They took that L on the chin.
No. Now, I agree with Miss Sias on one thing. See, Bayou Classic is always bittersweet for me. Because for the last 13 years, I have worked for the illustrious Southern University. I have been a part of the Jaguar Nation. But, I do have a paper that hangs on the wall that does say the Grambling State University.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how it feels to walk those streets of Grambling, be at the Tree of Knowledge, hang around Plaza. And, a lot of the dorms they had when I was there are no longer in existence.
That's wonderful.
Grambling looks like a beautiful little village in town now.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It didn't look like that when I was there, I promise.
Back in 19 picture it Sicily 19
back in them 90s, back in the 90s, because I was there in the mid 90s. It did not look nothing like that. But
you know what, Joe? I don't think nothing looked the same as it looked back in the 90s. Not me, not you,
at all.
Not Alcorn, not Grambling, not Southern.
So we have
not Southern.
We have a lot of HBCU love and power here. Of course, my good friend Edward J. Brown, alumnus from the Southern University, professor at the Alcorn State University. Miss Shauna Sias, who I know she had a son that graduated from Grambling, and her daughter is in the world famed Grambling State Band. So
hey, Mackenzie.
And yours truly. You never know where I might be when it comes down to HBCUs. You'll see me a little bit of everywhere. Former Lanite, former Grambling-ite, and a son of Southern. I am a son of Southern. So we are all here.
We adopted you up on the bluff.
Right. me and Coach Pontine, we took, me and Coach Pontine, one of them icy cold brothers from Southern. We just switched places. He went to Graham, and I just came on over to Southern, and we just switch places. So family tonight
is a Southern grad, so my money was distributed it well.
Right, that part. So
and we appreciate that too. We appreciate that.
My middle son played for the Jaguars, was a receiver, and graduated from the Southern University also. So look, tonight on this mental health, I almost said Mental Health Monday. Did you see that?
Remember that? That's a blast from the past.
Right.
That's a blast from the past.
On this Wellness Wednesday, I want to bring up the subject for tonight.
Okay.
And I want to talk about, and I think we really need to talk about this because it is the holidays. Thanksgiving is gone. We are making our way toward Christmas and the New Year. And the holidays ain't happy for everybody.
Nope.
I can honestly say with a little bit of remorse, with more than just a little, with a lot of sometimes not the best memories. My younger brother, who's a year younger than me, he passed away a week before Christmas, I think it was about 5-6 years ago. So, folks have tragedies that happen during the holidays, not only to talk about that, but the pressure that comes from the giving and not being able to give, and sometimes putting yourself in full debt from giving, and just really being at a place that is not good during the holidays because the holidays isn't happy for everyone.
Correct.
And I really want us to talk about tonight, how do you navigate these bad feelings during this joyous season?
Ah, that's interesting. Well, my lady, I let the lady go first.
Well, thank you. The first thing that came to mind was you must first realize your triggers. Always try to identify certain scenarios, situations, and if you're in tune with yourself, as I am, noises, smells, scents, and foods, certain things that you know will trigger an old memory that may not be a happy one for you. Be aware of those things. And sometimes, although you may not be able to prevent them, being aware of their occurrence and then know how to navigate through. For instance, Christmas for me usually is a real happy time, but I lost an uncle some years ago. So every Christmas around the same time, I start to think about when my uncle broke his tooth on a piece of crackling, right? Now, every year at Christmas, I don't even eat cracklings, but I'll go and buy it just in his memory. And that's so instead of it hitting me and I get sad, I go and produce a happy memory ahead of something negative happen. Make sense?
Does absolutely, totally.
Definitely. So, Mr. Brown, give us
Um,
the clinical way we handle this thing.
Well, one of the things that we're touching upon is what we call the opportunity to remember, memory. And what I always tell people is that those individuals who are going through the first holiday without a loved one, or the loss is it may be we never had during Thanksgiving, and that's a trigger. But what I always try to get people to do is to reframe the idea, reframe that thought. So, like she just did, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. We have a tendency, especially when we're looking at grief and trauma and loss, we have a tendency to mourn death instead of celebrate life. So, what I tell people is, those scents, those foods, these ideas, if they are negative, try to replace them with positive imagery. And what I mean by that, like the same example, my grandfather, I realized he was everything to me. And December 16th holds two special meanings for me. One, it was my grandfather's birthday, and it's the birthday of my son. And every December 16th, we would decorate the Christmas tree. The whole family would get together. So when my grandfather passed, one family, ritual that we maintained and kept was the decorating of the Christmas tree on December 16th. So what I challenge folks to do is during the holidays, celebrate, because that's what they're intended to do. And yes, as you get older in life, you have these memories of loss, or you have these memories of some of us trauma. You can replace those with images of, celebration of life. If it's a holiday that we're supposed to recognize being thankful, because we all should be thankful every day of our life, we should be thankful. But if Thanksgiving is a time set aside to acknowledge things that we're thankful for, everyone can say, hey, I'm thankful that, I had an opportunity to have this person in my life. What would my life have been without that individual? Instead of saying, well, they're not here anymore. Yes, we're going to miss them. However, their impact is still here on earth through their memories that you have. I had a gentleman tell me one time, no one ever truly dies if we remember them and we celebrate them.
Come on, that's what I'm talking about.
They can't, because we hold them inside. So during the holiday season, like you said, individuals don't have that connection to the holiday. That's where I challenge individuals. Take a plate, ring a doorbell, Say hello. Sit down with somebody and say, are you okay? How are you doing during this holiday season? Because a kind word goes a long way. That person that doesn't have food, they don't have a house full of people, but the fact that you may be called to say hello, put a smile on their face. And we take for granted that big things like gifts, gatherings are what's important. Sometimes it's just the little things, very little things that can make someone's life.
I can definitely attest to that, because show before last, Joe had alluded to the fact that I was dealing with health issues. Well, those health issues was actually 3 strokes the week of October the 6th. So this Thanksgiving was my first Thanksgiving, not being able to cook the spread, right? Simple things like remembering how to do things. That's what I'm literally struggling with. So this Thanksgiving, I had to go to my mother's house, who is also in her 70s. My dad is 83. So long story short, all of the things that I thought defined Thanksgiving totally given me a new outlook this Thanksgiving, because I was barely walking, I could have not been here. I could have not been here. And although I was not able to make the turkey, I had a friend to give me one. You know, my mom wasn't able to make the meals that I was looking for. She had it catered. But the fact was, I was with my mother and I was with my father. And it had been a long time since all of us had been together. So it actually gave me a new insight on what Thanksgiving is.
You know, it gives us an opportunity to really, like I said a second ago, reframe what the holiday time is all about. You know, when we're looking at, is it about the food? Is it about the spread? And coming up to the Christmas holidays, is it about the gift? Or is it about recognizing what is truly important? Now, keep in mind, I'm speaking as a older individual and not as a child. Of course, a child was it's about the gifts, trust me. But for us who are getting closer to self-actualization, we want to be able to say, you know what? Having you here, being able to say, hey, Miss Sias, how you doing? It's good to see you. And you being able to say, it's good to be seen.
Good to see you. Correct.
Instead of being viewed.
It's good to be, that's right. And we have to get to the point where as we get older, we start to change things. Because I remember being a young kid, and what was important to me was how many gifts was under the tree. But now what's important to me is how many people I get to see instead of the gifts under the tree. Hey, that rhymes. I'm going to have to put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, you're going to have to. Listen,
put that
brother,
on a t-shirt.
Brother Brent just put in, and I posted it up there, and I'm going to post it again where we can all look at this. And he said something that was good. He said, yes, grief is hard. He had lost his brother's mother and father. And some days he feels alone, but he tries to celebrate the memory and remember the good times. You know, sometimes you got to encourage yourself during this holiday season.
Absolutely.
Many a times we're waiting on other folks to celebrate and to encourage us when we need to celebrate ourselves and encourage ourselves. You know, and I'm going to tell you why. I posted something that really touched my heart today, because today I got hit with a ton of bricks because I realized there are people I care for more than they care for me.
That's
and it hit me like a ton of bricks today. And I was hurt. I literally had to pause at my job and breathe, because it really came to me that there are people that I care for. There are situations and circumstances and individuals that I have more love for them than they have for me.
You know what I tell people? You looking for you in other people.
Right.
So you're looking for you in those folks.
Right.
And they're not you.
And I can understand, like with Sister Shauna, for a prime example, you know, this lady has suffered multiple strokes. And knowing that she was out there on the front line fighting the way she was fighting, for folks and fighting for children's right and advocating for the greater good of the community to the point that it almost took her out the game. Sometimes you have to remind yourself what I always say, in case of turbulence and something
Put your
happens
mask on first.
and their mask drop down, don't put everybody else mask on and save them at the cost of you dying. First, put your mask on and make sure you can breathe. Then begin to help those around you. And so that's why I wanted to talk on this 29th day of November, because a lot of folks out there, your problem is you saving everybody else at the cost of you losing yourself.
Well,
and that is causing trauma. That is causing mental anguish. That is causing grief, when you should start taking care of yourself. There's nothing wrong with making sure that you're okay, because if you're not okay, it's hard to make other folks okay at the expense of you not being okay. Brother Brown.
Well, the lady has her finger up.
I'm actually going to ask a question from the guilty side.
Okay.
Right? Because that is a statement that has been told to me at least 5,764,786.4 times this week.
50-11 times.
50-11-13.
50-11-13, gotcha.
And I still have the same question. How do you take who you are and what you've always been taught, which is to give, and then all of a sudden turn into more of a preserver or a keeper? I was always taught to do for others, take care of others, especially children, old folks, people that can't take for themselves. Well, when I was put in a position that I could not, that I needed somebody to take care of me, that was a culture shock. That was like taking me out of a sane place and putting me in an insane place with no direction. That's a very easy statement to do, but that's almost impossible when I ain't never been taught that.
Oh, hey, well, look, let me interject. What you just experienced was what we call, you were receiving the energy that you put out. If you had not been that individual who gave, that individual who was taught to give, when it came time for you to need, you would not have had it. So what you did was you harvest. You received your harvest, which was you got out what you put in. What has a tendency to happen is we have a problem with change. You see, you're not that individual you were 20 years ago. But throughout that 20-year period, you planted seeds. You put down good and you put it in good soil. So now, and it's hard for us sometimes to accept we're not what we were 20 some years ago. Show you what I'm talking about. You ever go to those old school car shows, or you see them when they pass?
Mm-hmm.
Man, some of them things are fine, aren't they?
They are.
But what you have to understand is, back that 1965 Chevelle that had the 350 engine and can do the quarter mile in 60, they don't run those cars no more. Those cars that used to be speed, they're now living their best lives. They stay in the garage, they polish them with the soft cloth, and people give them back the joy that they gave over the 20-some years. What you are struggling with is receiving your harvest. That's what you're struggling with. You're still trying to plant seeds. And when we get to a certain age, our planting time is done. It's time to harvest now. And it's as a planter, it's hard to harvest. You know, like, wait a minute. Shouldn't I still be putting seeds down? And you got all of this harvest coming to you. Say, no, you planted in me years ago, and this energy is coming back to you now. And now it's time for you to receive. And that's just the struggle of going into the next part of the life cycle. When we get to that part of the life cycle, we still want to be. Hey, Richard Pryor summed it up. Richard Pryor said, "What I used to do all night, take me all night to do." So I want you to get comfortable. I want you to get comfortable receiving the energy that you put out.
Now, let's bookmark that. I want to talk about something that I think a lot of times people definitely don't want to talk about, so I need to talk about it. I heard what you said, Brother Brown, and I definitely felt what Sister Shauna said. But here's the truth about the matter. One of the reasons those old cars look so good is because they were, here's a word that a lot of folks don't like hearing, they were well maintained. And see, here's the thing about it. Many times folks like Shauna is maintaining everybody at the cost of her not being maintained by anybody.
Absolutely.
So hold on, I got to talk to y'all for a minute because some of y'all gonna catch what I'm saying. See, one of the hardest things I think for folks to really digest is, like you said, when you look for you from other folks. Because I always tell folks, if I pulled a you on you, how would you feel? But I'm not built to pull a you on you. All I'm built to do is pull a me on you.
And you got to be who you are.
Forgive. I'm that type person who will forgive. I'm that type person who will look over. I'm that type person who will say, you know what? You did me wrong, but that's all right. Maybe you just was having a bad day. And see, when you give all you got and you can't give no more, to the point that you almost have lost everything you had, given what you got, that others be okay, it does put you in a place that you feel quite strange. You say, Lord, I've done all I can do. Who gonna watch out for me? See, because that's the part right there that probably leads folks to depression, leads folks to suicide, lead folks to saying, I can't do no more. I done gave all I got. And then tricks of the mind and the enemy show up and tell you, well, and watch this. A friend of mine told me this today, and I'm going to pass it back over to you, Brother Brown. A friend of mine said the first thing the devil told him when he couldn't pay his bills was, look at all them tithes you gave away. Well, wait a minute. The tithes wasn't mine in the beginning. And I ain't trying to get spiritual here, but what belongs to him is his anyway. So let me talk about maybe me not being a good steward over the 90% instead of me trying to all of a sudden question the 10% that was his in the first place. See, sometimes we focus on the wrong thing. You questioning the wrong, don't question the 10, question your stewardship over the 90. And then make adjustments. See, we got to stop complaining about the way things are and quickly assess the way they are and make the proper adjustments that they don't stay the way they are. Brother Brown, the floor is yours.
Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process, and then you will not worry about what's going to come back to you, because you know that the process. All right. Think about the whole law of physics. The law of physics basically says energy doesn't go away. It just transforms into other types of energy. So if you are trusting the process and you are doing what you feel is a part of your makeup, is just who you are, then trust the process. I always tell people this example to explain that. When you tell me, Brother Dupree, yo, Brother Brown, I'm gonna talk to you later, man, I love you. Are you telling me you love me for me to tell you I love you back? Or are you telling me you love me so that I know? The same way you do something, you say it all the time. Stop giving when the camera is on, and then when the camera's not on, you ain't giving. When you trust the process and you know I'm putting out positive vibes, good energy, good idea, good intentions, nothing is going to come back to you that's yours, that's negative. Now, like you say, it's going to take all kind of people. If folks going to come at you with the negativity, that ain't the peak. That's not the energy for you, because that's not what you put out. That's why you're not going to receive it. You ain't going to be all right with it. Watch this. You ever heard the saying, misery loves company? See, people who put out negative energy, they're all right with negative energy coming back. But if you are that person that's constantly trying to do, and the negative, it doesn't sit right with you. It causes conflict. It causes resistance. Trust the process, and you do what you do because it is in your spirit, not for the recognition, not for the acclaim or the accolades that'll go along with it, but because you feel deep down in you, that's the right thing for you to do at that time. So once that happens, then you live and you find that peace within yourself to say, you know what, I did because it's the right thing to do, not because it's the popular thing to do.
So let us be clear about something for those out there that are listening. If you are givers, you got to check your circle and your surroundings, because those who take will drain you dry.
They're gonna take, yeah. That's what they do.
Because that's what they do. Takers take and givers give. So as a giver, you've got to watch your circle. Now, the reason I'm going to kind of shift here to Sister Shauna is definitely we have to think about this with the younger, more vulnerable population. And since she emphasizes on the kids and bullying, this is why sometimes bullies are so prevalent, because they know who the givers are. And because they the takers, they're going to let the givers give, and the takers are going to take. Sister Shauna.
Well, that is the sheer definition of what a bully is by definition. A bully just isn't somebody that is physically overpowering or able to verbally overpower. It's someone that is actually picked on because they are perceived as vulnerable. So anything that is perceived as vulnerable, and unfortunately, we now live in a world where giving is perceived as vulnerable.
Correct.
You are more likely to get used and abused by giving than you are than taking. Takers appear to get real far, which is what makes givers very frustrated. It may, especially a child, it makes them more prone to violently respond. It makes them more prone to react and respond as opposed to think through, right? Those things matter, and givers have to, and I'm learning this myself, even as whether it be an adult or a child, a giver must know their limit of giving. I did not know my limit of giving. I was halted immediately when I had 3 in a week and got stuck in ICU 46 days ago. Right. So I'm learning that it's important for you to know your level of giving. And empaths are the ones that are most at risk. Right. Because we'll feel the story, we'll hear it, and we'll embody and feel the story. We have to stop that, because then we get that relational traumatized feeling that because someone else is hurting and I can't help them, now I'm hurting. And we cannot do that anymore. I think my therapist put it best when he said, I'm in transition from being a foot soldier to a general.
Exactly. The general not in the middle of the battlefield. Yeah,
that's correct. You got to know how to give orders. Right.
He's strategically, sending out the troops. Correct.
Right.
Exactly. We have to get to that point where we understand that everything changes. So many things has its limits. I find it with my own self. I'm in the gym, and when I was in my 20s, I could lift half the gym. When I was in my 40s, I didn't want to. In my 50s, I need to. So now I'm trying, but I understand now I have to strategically do different things. I can't go in it because I'll hurt myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an adjustment for me. It was an adjustment to say, well, as a former athlete, you can't do this anymore. You can't do that. As a former giver, you've learned a couple of things. Number one, I got to watch what I give because I have to keep something for myself. Because if I don't, I break down.
Right, right.
I got to keep something for me.
And you got to give it up to what Shauna said. Folk, family, those listening and watching and sharing, know your limitations. See, that's the problem with a lot of us. We forget what our limitations are. Then we put too much stress on us, and stress will make pipes burst. And at the end of the day, family, you got to know your limitation. Guess what? No is not an ugly word. Guess what? It's no problem looking at some folks saying, I am, during this holiday season, going to take care of those who are near and dear close to me. But you might not, and it's not that you're not near and dear close to me, but if you're a third cousin or off friend, you might not get what my immediate family gets because I've got to take care of those who are closest to me. That's why I tell everybody in your circle might not necessarily be in your corner. And the people you really got to make sure is straight are those in your corner. But too many times we neglect those in the corner because we're too busy trying to take care of those in the circle and sometimes those outside the circle. I'm going to say this today. Today I was given something that I will take to the grave to me. When you're in the midst of your folk, and when I say your folk of color, and a person who's not of color begins to be a little abrasive or a little bit direct with one of the brothers or sisters that's in the circle, that's when I feel like the village needs to stand up and say something. That's when the village says, hold up, wait a minute, why are you talking to this brother like that? But then when you're in the midst of the village and that happens and don't nobody say anything, it brings you to a place of rude awakening. That, my God, if you ain't going to defend me in my face, what in the world are you doing when I ain't around? And that's when you really start realizing why we ain't getting nowhere. Because we talk a good game when the good game benefits us. But this so-called, and we got a lot of folks, and this is for my giving folks out there, we got a lot of folks who are sheep, who are wolves in sheep clothing. Y'all disguised as givers, but all y'all really are takers who are disguised as givers. And see, y'all try to make it seem like, oh, not me, not me. But every time I turn around, I come to find out that you really a wolf in sheep clothing because you ain't who you say you are. Because all you really doing is manipulating what you can manipulate to get what you need to get to make sure that you and yours is fine, and you ain't concerned about the greater good of all or the community. But you have disguised yourself. Come on, Sister Shauna, I'm gonna bring you on in. You have disguised yourself as I'm this community advocate. I'm this community this. But watch this. You let a person all of a sudden not share your post. You let a person all of a sudden not talk to you or speak to you in a place. Then all of a sudden you start showing your real colors because then instead of you being the person to help the greater good of all, you the person attacking somebody who all they were trying to do was help all of us. And I just come to discover that we need to wake up. And it's times like this we need to talk about this. I know it's uncomfortable. And here's why. Because too many of us have been following the Pied Pipers of our community to the river where they're about to drown us all. Sister Shauna.
It's one of the things that we cover in our curriculum. It all has to do with healthy relationships, right? Because whether it's in the community, whether it's in a family, whether it's in a marriage, whether it's just in a friendship, there's come a point that we haven't set boundaries. And then when a person does set a boundary and hold you to it, that we're looked at as difficult to deal with. Angry Black women, You know, you mentioned being in the room of people of color. I'm lucky to have both colors. I've been around some of them where you can absolutely tell that they have been comfortable with speaking a certain way with their group of those friends. And just because that's not for me, I'm looked at or not invited back or looked at like I'm difficult. You know, I tell people all the time, is it hard being me? Lord, have mercy. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But I would rather be genuine and authentic and alone than to be
false and with a big crowd
and surrounded by a whole bunch of folk.
Mm-hmm.
Being in an incapacitated state lately has shown me a whole lot about these community activists. A lot of them. They're not there to help the community. They're not there for that. They're there to make it look and appear as though they're helping the community. But when one of the community falls, baby, I have some of them that didn't even have the courtesy to respond to the messages that I sent out. Had to humble myself to ask for. And it didn't make me angry. I'm not bitter. I'm not about to call nobody out, not doing none of that. It made me understand how some people get to the last bit of their rope and don't want to go no more. Now I understand why these young folk go on social media, make these suicidal cries for help, and then go through with it. I now understand. We always forget that the fourth leading cause of death amongst ages 10 to 34 is suicide.
Come on.
Exactly. We talked about that. How many shows have we had on that? 10,
come on, Brother Brown. You know, and I'm gonna pass it over to Brother Brown right now because we need to have a see. It's okay not to be okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay. I want to say that again. It's okay to not be okay. And this affects people of color. It affects the female population, the male population. It affects the young and the old. Because too many of us bottle inside and hold inside what we need to release to somebody, and to the point that it literally makes us pop. You know, I just left a conference that Brother Brown is going to be a big part of. We're working on a health and equity task force. And you know, one thing that really kills me is I've come to find out, and it says it in the word, and I ain't trying to get spiritual because I ain't that big of a religious guy. I'm very spiritual, but let's be real. It says in the world that, you know, prosperity don't understand poverty, and poverty don't understand prosperity. And the word does say that the poor will be among us always. And it also says those that will have a lot and who will be greedy will be among us always also. So, family, when is it that we're really going to do what we need to do to be right by our brothers and sisters? Because guess what? I was leaving a meeting and I had ordered food. They had ordered food for me because I was going to be at this meeting, and they messed up my order. Instead of me throwing that order away, something in my spirit said, drive by a certain part of Lafayette where a bunch of homeless folks be. And the first homeless person you see, get out your car and give them that plate and say, look, man, I don't know if you ate or not, but before I throw this in the trash, I'm going to give this to you. They messed my order up. And don't even tell them that. Just give them the food and tell them, God bless and enjoy the meal and have a good night. I did just that. Family, sometimes we've got to do what we need to do to be the best we can be to our fellow man, even if we don't know our fellow man. See, the problem with a lot of y'all ain't got a problem with blessing folks you know. But are you really blessing folks when you bless folks you know? To me and mine, those who are in care that God has given me in care of, my spouse, my children, my elderly parents, my relatives, those are people I'm supposed to take care of. Correct. So if I brag about me taking care of them, something wrong. The question is, can you take care of somebody you don't even know? You want to impress me? Bless somebody with a house that you ain't never met them before.
That's it.
But don't think you impressing me when you give somebody something that either is your relative or somebody who is giving you a lot.
You're supposed to.
Or
I'm
are
just
you
saying,
doing it
Brother Brown.
because the television cameras are there?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, come
we,
on,
we
Brother
do it
Brown.
because the television. But I have two things I want to say to address what you guys are on tonight. Both of you are really, really giving some gems here. One of the things that we need to get back that side of humanity that we seem to have lost, where people really cared about other individuals genuinely. Now we are in this generation or this time of self. Okay, I don't have a problem with being in the whole mindset of self. However, it's good to choose self when you are in the middle of something that is not in your best interest. It's okay to choose you. And that's not being selfish. It's not being oh, you don't care about other individuals. That's not true. I do care about other individuals. But if I don't agree with this and I think this is harmful, I choose me and I distance myself from that. The other part is I'm going to be as kind. That's a word that we just don't seem to want to throw around because kindness is looked upon as a sign of weakness. And that's not true. Kindness is what we're supposed to be. But too often we do what is popular instead of doing what's right. Now we'll do what's popular, especially if everybody gonna see. Now, Brother Dupree, you went and you delivered that food. I'm more than sure nobody other than you and that brother saw that. And too
Correct.
often we don't have that type of interaction with one another. If the cameras are gonna be on, I'm holding the check up. I want you to see I'm giving this check. But these anonymous donations, doing something for a stranger, especially during this time of the holidays, is just not pushed as a popular thing to do. Now, we have to get to the point in our life and in our society where we say, you know what? Like you said, brother, that's not right. And we're going to stand up and say that's not right. Please don't do that because that's going to harm people. Well, who are you? You don't even know them. I don't need to know them to know that that's wrong.
Come on,
You
that
see,
part.
we don't need to know somebody to know that you're not doing right by them.
Come on.
So if we are here at this time, at this place, on this earth, kindness to, and I may be paraphrasing because anybody who knows me, Brother Dupree, you know, I am a big fan, huge fan of Muhammad Ali.
Come on.
And he said, what you do for your fellow man is the rent you pay for being on this earth.
Come on.
And again, I'm paraphrasing. And we don't take that to heart enough. You know, and you feel like, look, man, this is what we're going to do. And me and you going to split this money. But hold on, you and I splitting this money is hurting 50 people.
Come on. Come
well,
on.
Don't worry about that. Ain't nobody going to know but me and you. I know.
Right.
I know.
Right.
And that's the part when I say, check your heart and see, do you have that love for all humanity? You didn't ride around to deliver that plate to the first black man you saw or the first white man you saw. You went to deliver that plate to the first homeless person you saw. And when we get to that point where we start to get back in touch with the humanity inside of us, we're going to see a lot of things change. We're going to see a lot of people being held accountable for things that they did. It's just blown away. And I'm not knocking this dude because I don't know him, but I know they did wrong. It's just this whole situation with Brett Favre years ago, taking money from less fortunate budgets for less fortunate people. Somewhere, somebody should have said, yo, man, this is not right. Don't do that. But as long as, you know, it ain't got nothing to do with me, I'm good. Well, no, because am I my brother's keeper?
Right.
And my
Right.
brother's keeper.
People don't know what that means anymore.
Yeah,
Oh,
but that's the problem.
I find absolutely. I find that they use the cliches when the camera's rolling and it sounds good, right? But if somebody really want to impress me, don't do something for somebody less fortunate. You really want to impress Shauna Sias? Do something for somebody you don't like.
Come on.
Now
what you do to the least of them.
I got one better than that for you. Somebody that don't like you.
I can assure you.
Somebody don't like you.
I can assure you, I have absolutely, because before I help anybody, I'm going to research who you are. That's just what I have to do, because I'm not putting my name on anything that could backfire on myself. I have researched people that I have ended up helping, knowing their family members have screwed over on me. And I did it anyway. I did it anyway. And it's not because I want a pat on the back or some kind of award. It's because it's the right thing to do. Yes.
You planting seeds. You still planting seeds.
Right.
That you get the harvest from.
Hold up.
And my mom is the first person that'll tell me. I'll call my mama right now and be like, "Ma, you know, and she don't cuss, so I can't say too many. And before every cuss word, I gotta apologize. Be like, "Ma, you know, excuse me ahead of time, but I really don't like this SOB, and I wish blah blah da 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 da." And she'll listen. Well, Buffy, what God did for you when you didn't listen.
There you go.
And that's the kind of person that raised me, which is why I can take those shots. I can take those, whether it be outright or underhanded. I don't mind, because I know who I am. Now, does it hurt? Yeah. I'd be insane to say that I'm so strong of a human that insult don't injure.
Yeah, I have feelings. We all have feelings.
So let me say this. Let me say this to y'all. And I think folk really, when you're out there listening out in social media world, we got to stop confusing these two words, and we confuse them all the time. Good and perfect. Good and perfect get confused. I'm a good person, but I'm far from being perfect. And see, many times when you use the word good, you imply that the person is perfect. They don't have a blemish. They don't have a scar. They didn't do this. No. Listen, good people do bad things, just like bad people do good things. Just because you're good or bad doesn't mean that you're perfect. Doesn't mean you don't have blemishes. Doesn't mean that life hasn't been lifing on you. And many a times we've got to come over this hump of understanding, how is it that you can be so critical and hypocritical about a person when they do? See, we act like we I say this all the time. We act like we PhD doctors when somebody do us wrong. Oh, we can talk about them. Oh, did you see how they did me? You can come up with some of the most elaborate words to describe how a person did you wrong, when you are the person being done wrong, when you are the victim. But when you are the villain, you're the first one, and sound like you in kindergarten. Y'all know y'all need to forgive me. I just didn't know what I was doing. Where do you elaborate words? Where did that same energy come from? Where that same energy? See, you got to stop. You got to start understanding, and we have to start understanding, because this is where it is messing with people's mental health. You can't crucify me for the same thing that you did, that you wanted me just to ta-ta and pat you on the back for and say, I understand, everything gonna be okay. Brother Brown.
Yes, I can. And sometimes they do. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and one of the things that just keeps echoing in my mind is that we have a tendency to, when we get at certain places in our lives, we forget. And I think we conveniently forget.
Selective amnesia.
The things that we did, especially when it comes to parenting. You know, we forget the things that we got into. But what I think we have to definitely is, and I'm looking at the clock and we got a few more minutes, is that there is so you say, brother, do perfect and good. Well,
Right.
I'm thinking about something else as well. And I'm
Come on.
thinking we need to really, through this holiday season, start to pay close attention to cost and value.
Ooh.
See, there's two separate things right there.
Mhm.
And I'm getting so analytical right now when I'm not necessarily talking about monetarily,
Mhm.
you know, because a person could cost you more
Mhm. Then they work.
than they worth in
Yes.
your life.
Ooh. Ooh.
You see,
Mhm.
they can cost you more than their value
Mhm.
in your life. And we
Mhm.
hold
Ooh.
on to them
Mhm.
and we bring them along. See, I mean, I've been listening, and we are at this time in our lives where we're talking about giving and giving and giving in our rent that we have to pay on this earth. But too often we look at the cost
Mhm.
instead of the value. Now,
Oh.
that plate that you gave that man might have cost you some money, but the value of it to
To
that man
him. That's correct.
was
Ooh.
immeasurable.
That's correct.
Ooh.
It's not measurable. So what I think we have to really start to look at during this holiday season
Come on.
and going forward is we have lost the concept of value in our society, in our lives, in our communities. You know, you and I were talking a couple of months ago, and we were talking about timepieces and the expensive how timepieces have gone through the roof, and there's $350,000 watches, and I was like, the most valuable watch I own is a
Come
watch
on.
that I got from my grandfather that's probably worth $6,
Mhm.
but its value to me is immeasurable.
Mhm.
Mm.
I have some friends that I just met whose value in my life
Mhm.
Come on.
is more than some people I've been knowing
All
for
your
my
life.
whole life.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, so I think when we start looking at good versus perfect, we got to start looking at our lives and the things that we do in the perspective of the cost and its value.
Ooh.
Because if we do that, a whole lot of people feelings gonna be hurt
Yes, sir.
because they think they cost a lot.
Mm.
And to you and me, their value has decreased tremendously. Now,
Come
it
on.
may show you how close I am to knowing me real well. It may be people who my value may have fallen off in their lives.
Right. Come
But
on.
for
Come
them,
on. That door swing both ways.
it swings
That door
both
swing
ways.
both ways.
It swings both ways. But I am wise enough to know you're not going to come in and make me think something that's not true to me.
Mhm.
I choose me in the midst of chaos. I'm not going to choose the chaos. I'm not. And if I remove myself from the chaos, well, you ain't my boy, you ain't my dude, you're not hanging out. You see all this chaos going on? Yeah. And I'm removing myself from it. And if you knew what was best, you'd remove yourself from it and come on with me.
Mhm.
But some people like and they breed towards that type of thing.
Come on.
Mhm.
Come on.
It gives them purpose in their life. So I think that we've addressed so many different issues in tonight's podcast. A lot of bangers in this podcast here tonight.
Come on.
But for me,
Indeed.
I want everybody to start, especially going into, the new year, to make a commitment to identify cost and value in everything that you have to remove yourself from chaos. And I'm gonna tell you this: don't let nobody make you feel bad for choosing you. You can
Joey,
choose you and it may not fit it. Man, I can't believe you let. Hey, that didn't work for me. It didn't work for me. I had to choose me. Now you were more than welcome to come with me, but you didn't. You chose the chaos.
I want to piggyback off of what you said
Come on,
about
Shauna.
cost and value before we get off this evening. But in order for you to know the difference between the cost and the value, you have to identify your worth.
There you go.
And you cannot let that be put into somebody else's hands. That is an individualized journey that one has to take on their own. And once you realize what you are worth, you would be surprised at what your cost actually is versus what your value is. Especially our young women, our young girls. I don't give too much on young men, especially when men are present. I raised my son to the limit of my womanhood, right? But as far as our young girls, you won't be able to figure out what your worth is if you put such a low value on your cost.
That's another t-shirt. We're gonna make some money on some t-shirts tonight. That's another t-shirt.
So family, I don't try to emulate or imitate other folks. I give other folks credit where their credit is due. Unlike other folks who have taken sayings and slogans and even whole models of how to do what they do. You know, we have here in this city a guy named Kenneth Keep Him Talking Boudreaux, personal friend of mine. He does a thing called overdrive because he says, look, my time limit is this, but I'm going to go over. Well, we ain't going to get off this thing for a few minutes here because we're not going to do just an hour tonight. We're going to do a little bit more. So we're going to give it up to Kenneth for giving us that overdrive because we're going to go into overdrive. You know, family, I want you to understand why we do this Wellness Wednesday and why we are concerned about your mental health. It's because it's these little foxes on the vine that we have been addressing that slowly begin to deteriorate at you, gnaw at you, nudge at you, and put you at a place that issues begin to start showing up physically that are inside you mentally and internally. They begin to show up on the outside. And family, the reason I got Brother Edward J. Brown on here is because he owns a counseling service. Now, many a time we don't want to talk to folk when we got issues because we feel like that should be our business.
Yeah,
but this is the point where I give a plug in to Brother Edward J. Brown. And here's what we got to stop doing also. We got to stop thinking that other folks' water is colder or better than our water when we got good water from folk that look just like you and I. See, and I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to back up and let these two give their closing remarks and statement, but we're going to stay on here as long as we want to. As of late, here's what I've realized. Folk don't have a problem with you doing good or shining. They just don't want you to do better or outshine them. And family, we got to fix that because I rejoice with those who are winning, even when I'm losing, because I need us to be winning on everything we do, because one of us winning represents a lot of us with the potential to win, because representation matters. But here's one thing I'll never do. I'll never wish the downfall of another person who looks like me. So I'm working on that, trying to do that with human beings. But I definitely, if you're a person of black or brown color, or you a person of color, I'm not wishing for you to lose at anything. Now, you might be doing something that I don't agree with, but I'm going to learn how to agree with you and be disagreeing with you without hating on you publicly or not pulling you to the side and having a one-on-one adult conversation with you to say, I just don't see it the way you see it. Maybe you can explain it to me and maybe there's something I'm missing, but I want you to understand I really can't roll or rock with you if that's the stance you're taking, outside of me trying to go out here and defame and put you down for whatever. Because these days and times, people will hate you for the choices and the decisions you have made to better your life. I actually had a person today ask me how I was doing and what my status was with a certain situation. Well, if you're going to ask me that because you are quote unquote a concerned citizen or you're just curious, at least when you ask me if I'm doing okay, is my job all right? As my family, at least come back and say this. The reason I'm asking you is because there's an opportunity I heard about that you might fit in. But don't just ask me where you can run around and say, oh, he's about to lose this, or he ain't got that, or she ain't got this, and look what happened to her. No, if you're going to ask me that question, have enough decency as a human being to say to me, I heard that some things might be going on that might not be good, but I have heard of an opportunity that should this opportunity dissolve itself, you can jump right on into this. See, we got to stop wanting to hate on each other so much that really secretly we're not happy that you got promoted. We ain't happy that you got the situation. We ain't happy that you doing what you doing because somewhere deep inside you're saying enviously with jealousy, that should have been me.
That's a problem with self.
Come on. So with that being said, before I turn it over to Brother Brown to close us out, I'm going to give Sister Shauna. Sister Shauna, you got the next 5 minutes. Say what you will, my dear.
I will definitely add to that. You do not have to turn off somebody's light bulb in order to keep the light in the room bright.
Ooh.
They make different watts. They make different kinds. They make different fixtures. Everybody can do what they can do within their capacity. I am a firm believer that one's purpose, you all, called it one thing. I remember the old folks called it working on your dash, right? Everybody has a different dash. It's not as long as others. It won't contain the same things that I may have, but it's up to each individual person to find their purpose. And sometimes you will meet people that are seasonal. You will meet people that are reasonable. And then you will meet people out of season. And then you will meet people whose expiration date has expired just within your life. Not everybody that comes in is meant to stay. And that is something that I too also had to learn. So with that being said, when we start going through this holiday season, let's take ourselves out of it and stop just using Christmas as a time to make it look like we okay and actually start being okay. Because Christmas on the 25th, you still gonna have that same problem on the 26th if you don't address it. So this holiday season, instead of just making pretty packages and gifts to give, let's actually come up with some solutions and some apologies and some healing within self and families and see how much further we can go.
Brother Brown.
I don't know if I want to follow that. Go ahead, sister. All right. With me, but my final comments is going into this holiday season, I want everybody to take a minute, and the sister said, self. Look at self. And when you look at self, you're going to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we all have a little bit of all of that. But just because you have that ugly doesn't mean you're a bad person. So when you look at self and you see the good, the bad, and the ugly, I want you to check this little part inside of your soul that says humanity is my responsibility. The impact in my world directly falls on the work that I put in. Too often we look at other people to fill up our bucket. At some point, you have to take responsibility for yourself, your humanity, lack of humanity in you, your kindness, lack of kindness in you, and anything else that you're not okay with. Because at the end of the day, the only true constant in this life that we're living now is change. Anything you don't like in your life, in your community, in society, you can change it. That's the whole purpose. We decided to do Wellness Wednesday because we wanted to make a difference. I challenge everybody that sees this podcast, check yourself and see what kind of difference you're making in this world that we all live in. So we'll keep with that in mind. We always say, if nobody else told you they love you, we love y'all. See y'all next week. Peace.